Good evening. My name is Christopher R. Belcher, and I'm a comms student at Liberty University. My defense advocacy speech is on the root of all evil. Now, I'd like to have everybody take a little minute, or take a quick second, I should say, and think about, really quickly, the number one thing that pops into your mind that is something that you can get, or that you have to get, in order to have all your needs and wants fulfilled. Well, most people in this situation would probably think of the number one, the greenbacks, the money. Money has a negative connotation when it comes to this particular quote. And the quote is that money is the root of all evil. Now, most people are familiar with this quote, but most people don't actually realize that this quote actually comes from biblical text. In the New Testament, in 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10, it states, "For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evils. It is through this craving that some have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many pangs." Well, what does that mean? Well, first, let me say that this quote is actually misquoted. The quote that most people have in their head is that money is the root of all evil. Well, if you listen to it again, the very beginning states, "For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evils." This is a very big change or big thing to think about when it comes to my defense advocacy speech. When I am going to talk to you about how I don't believe necessarily that money is the root of all evil. That I believe that the thirst of power is the root of all evil, or at least one of many evils. Well, this saying, "For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil," basically is tapping into one of the many sins, the seven deadly sins, as a lot of people are familiar with, and that is greed, where money is basically just a standard byproduct of greed. Or I like to feel that basically money is a gateway drug to greed, or into the thirst of power. What position does money play in today's society? Well, you can get whatever you want. You can get the roof over your head. Like we could talk about, we can get about the food that we need to sustain life. We talk about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But when we talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, most of you have taken a psychology course and are understanding of that. Money is never mentioned. Money is never mentioned at all. It talks about social needs. It talks about the need to survive, emotional. He talks about your roof over your head as a need, but he never really talks about money in itself. Because what is money other than just a way in order to get the things that we need? In today's society, you need money. You need money to go out and buy the things, and that's just based on our economy and how we've evolved over the years. Back in the day, they used to just trade animals, or they would trade livestock, and they would trade crops. But and as it moved into, they used gold and they used something of value. And basically, what all money is a way that we use to get what we need in today's society. Well, when we look into what the topic I want to go into when we talk about the thirst of power, I really want to hit on what power is. Why is power important to some people and it's not important to others? Well, first we have to look at what is the definition of power. And the definition of power, according to Merriam-Webster, is the possession of control, authority, and influence over others. Influence over others. Well, we're all familiar with certain types of power. For me being in the military for almost 20 years, I actually hold a position of power over my students. And I will be absolutely honest with you, and I will tell you that my students look up to me, and I get a sense of power from that. I, can easily puff out my chest. I can walk around and I can direct people to do things, and the majority of the time, especially my students and my subordinates, they'll do exactly what I tell them to do. There's some consequences involved in that. Well, we know power when it comes to politicians. We know power when it comes to church leaders. We know power when it comes to we'll talk about the money, about the wealthiest people in the world: Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, the highs of companies and such. So what does power and why is it bad? Well, power isn't necessarily bad. Power in itself is not necessarily bad. I mean, to say that I'm a leader doesn't necessarily say that I'm bad. That's not my point. But my point is the thirst for power, the power that changes people, the power that when we look at ourselves internally, and we're willing to do anything we want for that power in order to have influence over others, as the definition says, then that can be bad. When politicians' minds are skewed because all they really want is that power. How many times has the military looked at Congress and basically said, "Listen, you have no experience in the military. How can you make decisions based on the military?" A lot of people want to use their control in order to make change just for the sake of change, and that is a form of power. We look at crime syndicates, we look at gangs, and often in my classrooms when I'm talking to my students, I bring up the power of gangs. I watched Gangland a couple times, and they pull back from the little piece in LA of this one gang that basically was a gang of maybe 2 or 3 streets. 2 or 3 streets, think about that. 2 or 3 streets compared to the whole entire world. All they wanted was their little piece of the pie, their small piece of the world, and they wanted to control it and control the people within it because they had that thirst for power. They wanted to have that influence, control, and authority over others. The problems that thirst for power have on our moral compass is often in my mind, especially when it comes to churches. There are a lot of people out there that are against churches and church lives because they believe that that churches themselves can be evil, all because of the misuse and abuse of power. Talk about my own testimony, where I was actually an atheist for from the time I was 17 until just 2 years ago. One of my biggest disdains was when I went to church and I saw the pastor driving a Jaguar, right, where most of his congregation drove around in Geo Metros or little small cars. I thought, wow, that's just telling that this individual is more worried about his image and what he drives than his actual congregation. I thought, man, there's a lot of money going through this church, and how many people actually see it? Well, a lot of people feel that way. A lot of people feel that the church is a money-making machine, and because there's so many churches out there, it's hard to deny that. You can make money in churches, and I know there's a lot of people out there who probably do it just for that and don't really look to God for guidance. They really look inside them. Politics, obviously. Have you ever seen a poor politician? You need money. You need money in order to become a politician. And a politician is a way to get power. Again, money as the gateway drug to power. Hierarchy of power in the military. It's almost needed. But we have people in the military that you see every single day on the news that are abusing their power. Just recently, the VA came under scrutiny for not giving the benefits to the troops that have come over wounded from overseas. And the individual that was at the top of that is now under the microscope for abusing his power, all in a matter of saving money or to line his own pockets. Well, there's also abuse and its consequences and the consequences of power in itself. And really, when it comes to money and we talk about the gateway drug, well, who really hip checks the wealthy? Not too many people. Not too many people will tell them that they're doing something wrong. That money usually is the scorecard on who can attain power. I would like you to think about the things that I've said today, and really change and hopefully change your mind on the way that power is over money and the negative impact that money has when people think about it. I would like to really think about what does that money do and how can that money change a person. And ultimately, in the end, it's the end result that really is the root of all evil. And it really is, in my opinion, it is that thirst for power, that thirst for the influence, authority, and control over others that eventually becomes the root of all evil. Thank you very much.